Hi, I'm going to walk you through today's in-class assignment. This is in-class assignment number 8. This is the first page. Right here we have a population of 4 people. We have a 10-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, and a 40-year-old. These are the ages of the 4 people. We're imagining that 2 people are being randomly selected from this population, and the mean age of those 2 people is being calculated. Someone is adding the 2 ages and dividing by 2 to get the mean of the 2 selected people. What I want you to do here is imagine that you're the person who's taking the random sample of 2 people and pick the 2 people that you selected. In other words, decide which 2 people you happen to select. And they can be any 2 you want, because this is just imaginary. So just pick 2 people and say that is your selected sample. That's the 2 people that you ended up selecting. And we'll just pretend that it's a random sample. So you could say that your sample is person 1 and person 3, and if you do that, put the ID numbers 1 and 3 here, and put in the 2 ages. Or you could imagine that your sample is person 2 and person 4. If that's what you're imagining, put 2 and 4 right here, the ID numbers, and fill in those 2 ages from the graph. And then, so if you decided to pick person 2 and person 4, your 2 ages would be 20 and 40, and you would put 20 and 40 right here. Once you fill in the ID numbers and the ages, calculate the mean of your sample. So X bar is sample mean. So you would just add the 2 ages and divide by 2 and get the mean of your 2 people, and then you're done with this page. Then on this page, what you're going to do a few things. First, you're going to calculate the mean age of the population that you sampled from. To get that, you add the 4 ages and divide by 4, and you get the population mean. Fill that in right there. This is a Greek letter mu, it's population mean. After that, fill in the ages of all of the possible samples of 2 people that you could have selected in the situation on the last page. So fill in the ages of person 1 and person 2, the ages of person 1 and person 3, and person 1 and person 4, using these 4 ages right here. So 1 and 2 would be 1020, 1 and 3 would be 1030, and so on. Once you fill in all of the ages, calculate the mean of each possible sample. So to do that, add the 2 ages and divide by 2, and do that for all 6 samples, and you'll get 6 different answers. Add these 2, divide by 2, add these 2, divide by 2, and do it 6 times. Once you do that, fill in your 6 answers over here. You'll have 1 answer for each possible sample. Then add the 6 numbers here and divide by 6, and you'll get the mean of your sampling distribution right here. And this number, the population mean, and the mean of the sampling distribution over here need to come out to the same number. They always come out to the same number, so if you get 2 different numbers, then that means that you made an error somewhere along the way. That's because when you look at when you write out the means of all possible samples, some of them will be low, like sample 1, and some of them will be high, like sample 6, but on average, they equal the population mean. So let's go down here. So this is page 3. So what you need to do now is fill in your population mean. This is still the same population as before. You've already calculated this. But you got it by adding the 4 numbers and dividing by 4. Then over here, make a graph of your sampling distribution, which is just the 6 numbers that you listed out here, the 6 answers. So take the 6 answers from here, the 6 sample means, and plot them in a diagram, and make an X for each for each number. So you'll end up plotting 6 different x's in here, one for each of these 6 answers. And 2 of them are going to end up being the same number. So just stack those 2 x's above each other like we've been doing in class. So this is just a diagram of your 6 answers from here. And here, put the same 2 answers that you calculated on the last page. So the mean of the population on the left side and the mean of the sampling distribution on the right side, and just put them here and here, and just compare them and decide if they're the same or not. And if you calculated them correctly, they're supposed to be the same. And finally, once you're done with all of that, label the probabilities of each of these different numbers, because the point of creating a sampling distribution is to give you the probability of each of these numbers down here. So let's start with 15. Let's say that you have 6 different x's in this diagram, and one of them is above 15. Well, that's 1 out of 6. So you would, above 15, you would put 1 over 1/6, 1 over 6. And let's say that you end up getting 2 x's stacked above 25. Well, that means that 2 out of 6 possible samples have a mean of 25. So the probability you would put here is 2 over 6. So just write out the fractions um, above this number line, above your x's, and you'll have one fraction above each tick mark. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can look back at the video that I posted under pages for sampling distributions, and also the PowerPoint slideshow on sampling distributions if you want to see an example of what those fractions look like. Right here, I have another problem that's the same. Well, it's the same type of problem as the last one, but now we're taking a sample of 3 people. So first I want you to imagine that you've randomly selected a sample of 3 people, and then write out your the ID numbers. So let's say you imagine that you've selected person 1, person 3, and person 4. You would put 1, 3, 4. Or if you're imagining that you selected persons 1, 2, and 3, you would put 1, 2, and 3. So you can pick any 3 people you want, but I just need you to pick um, a sample of 3 people and have you imagine that that's your sample and fill in the 3 ages. And it's up to you which combination you want to pick. After that, add the 3 ages, divide by 3, and get your answer. And then next, do what you did before. Calculate the mean of the population. Calculate the means of the possible samples. So for each of these, you'll be adding the 3 numbers and dividing by 3 to get the mean of that sample. Then list out the 4 answers. And then here, add the 4 answers and divide by 4 and get the mean of this column, the mean of the sampling distribution. So you're doing the same exact thing you did in the last problem, but you're doing it with samples of 3 instead of samples of 2. And here, do the same thing as before. Put the population mean right here. You've already calculated it, so add the 4 numbers, divide by 4, you'll get your answer. Make your diagram of the 4 answers from the sampling distribution right here, just like you did in the first problem. So now it's going to be 4 x's, each above its sample mean. And I think you're going to get one of them. I think one of them in here is going to come out to 22.5, and I think another one will come out to 27.5. And you can see that those numbers aren't provided. So if you get a 22.5, just put an X here halfway between. And if you get a 27.5, just put an X right here halfway between, um, just to show me that it's halfway between, even if the tick mark isn't there. And here, fill in your two answers from the last page and tell me if they're the same. And put the fractions above here, the probabilities, just like you did on the last page. Right here, um, this is another problem. So each problem is 3 pages long. This is the beginning of problem 3. It's actually the same exact thing as problem 1, except it's a different population. It's actually a population of 5 people. So once again, do this. Choose your sample and calculate its mean age. Um, look at calculate the mean of the population, add and divide by 5, get the means of all possible samples, fill in your answers, get the mean of the sampling distribution right here by adding and dividing by 10. Then do the same thing again here. Um, the mean of the population, the diagram with the fractions above it, and these two numbers from the previous page. And then here is the beginning of problem 4. So this one is a little bit different than the others because you're not calculating a mean, you're calculating a, let's see, you're calculating a proportion. So what I want you to do here is imagine you're selecting 2 people from this population and you're calculating the proportion of males in your sample. So to do this, pick whatever 2 people you want to pick as your sample. Could be 1, 2, 1, 3, anything, and fill in the ID numbers, fill in the genders of your 2 people. So it could be MM, it could be MF, it could be FF, and calculate the proportion of males for your sample. To get that, what you have to do is count the number of males in your sample and divide by 2. So if your sample is MM, you would have 2 males. So it would be, to get this proportion, you would do 2 divided by 2, and it would equal 1. If your sample is MF, that means you have 1 male and 2 people, so it would be 1/2. Divide 1 by 2, and it's 0.5. So just count the males and divide by 2, and you get the answer. And it's just the fraction of males in your sample as a decimal. That's all it is. Once you get that, move ahead and do this work. So now what you're going to do is you're going to calculate the proportion of males for the population. So count the males, divide by 4. So it looks like this is going to be 2 males divided by 4. 2 divided by 4 would be the answer, whatever it comes out to. Fill in the genders of your samples using this information on the left. And for each possible sample of 2, calculate its proportion of males by counting the males and dividing by 2. So if this was MF, it would be 1 divided by 2. If this was if this was FF right here, it would be 0 divided by 2 to get the answer. Do it for all 6. Then write out your 6 answers. Get the mean of the sampling distribution by adding and dividing by 6, like you did before. And this should come out to the same number as the population proportion, if you did it correctly, because once again, the samples average out to the population that they came from. And that's true with proportions and means. Here, put the population proportion, which you calculated before. It's just the number of males divided by 4 equals the proportion. of males for the population right here. It's just going to be 2 divided by 4. Make your graph right here. So plot your x's. Um, once again, you're just doing it with your 6 answers from here. And then label the fractions above it like you did in the other 3 problems. Here, just like before, put your 2 answers from the previous page. One of them was here, the other one from the right side, and tell me if they're the same. They should be this. They're supposed to come out the same. And then if they didn't come out the same, just check your work, and then you're finished. So it's 4 problems, and each one is 3 pages. And just send me an email if you have any questions.